President Biden warning Russian President Putin of enormous consequences if his forces invade Ukraine. And then Biden said the Russian leader is hard to read and that no one really knows what Putin will do. Critics say Putin is not worried about President Biden.
This administration's been very clear on how weak they are. What you look at is Putin's intention was never to go to war. It's not popular for Russians to want to see their troops go to war. He doesn't have the money to do it, but he's willing to do it if he can win something. And he smells blood in the water, and that's what we're seeing him do.
Joe Biden has been a wrecking ball when it comes to national security all of his friggin' life.
Whew. Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, a member of the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees. Great to have you in focus today. I don't know if you just heard Senator Lindsey Graham, but a wrecking ball is kind of harsh, or is it?
It's not harsh, Harris. You know, Bob Gates, who was the former Secretary of Defense for both George Bush and Barack Obama, wrote 10 years ago that Joe Biden has been wrong about nearly every major foreign policy and national security issue for 4 decades. I think you can update that now and say it's been wrong. He's been wrong about it for 5 decades. And there's not much question that Joe Biden's first year in office, when he was weak and conciliatory and appeased Vladimir Putin, has contributed in large measure to the crisis we now see in Eastern Europe.
Look, we saw this president really mess up the exit after the end of the war in Afghanistan. Military did a beautiful job, the best it could, and it gave up lives trying to get people out of there. The president, no. If he messes this up with Russia, what's at stake?
Well, the fundamental American interests are at stake whenever our adversaries around the world see something happening like what happened in Afghanistan or what could happen with an invasion of Ukraine, and they realize that they can push and threaten American interests, and America will not stand up and defend our interests. So what happens in Ukraine, for instance, has direct bearing in the Western Pacific, where China might decide to go for the jugular in Taiwan, or they might continue to cheat on trade deals, take American jobs, and shutter American factories. They might threaten our troops or our allies in the Western Pacific. So much of America's interests and security and stability in the world depend on how our adversaries view the President of the United States. And unfortunately, after a year of Joe Biden, most of our adversaries see Uncle Sam with the kick me sign on his back.
Whew. Senator Cotton, you and I have been talking for months about bringing Americans home, and you have promised that when you can talk on the record, you'll tell us what some of the journeys have been like. Meanwhile, it was definitely eye-opening on this program yesterday to hear from the Pentagon spokesperson, Admiral Kirby, openly saying how much more work they have to do to get Americans home, those who are still trapped inside Afghanistan 5 months after Biden's disastrous withdrawal. Now nearly 24 citizens and legal residents are finally home safely, but not thanks to the federal government, which is what Kirby said that they could do, but thanks to a private nonprofit group, Project Dynamo. A Tampa-based rescue organization has helped thousands of Americans and green card holders get out of Taliban-controlled Afghanistan since the United States left. Yesterday, in Focus, I pressed John Kirby on this very issue.
We absolutely share the concerns of so many Americans and some of these nonprofit and ad hoc groups that are coming together to help us identify Americans and SIV holders, allies, Afghan allies that still want to leave Afghanistan. So you're right, the mission there is not over, Harris, and we are continuing to work inside the State Department task force to help people get out of Afghanistan.
Wow, you touched on something else. So are we still relying on the Taliban?
This isn't about relying on the Taliban. This is about working with these aid groups and helping identify people that need to get out of Afghanistan and getting them out.
So the Taliban are not helping us do that.
They are still getting out of Afghanistan. These people are still getting out. And look, we know we have work to do. And here at the Department of Defense, we know we have a moral obligation to continue to help those people.
But I didn't hear an answer to the question. Are we still working with the Taliban?
This isn't about relying or working with the Taliban.
But it is, though. Because that talks to the desperation for getting people out, Senator Cotton.
Yeah, Harris, first off, I want to commend Project Dynamo. They did a great job in this instance. Several other organizations and veterans and generous philanthropists are supporting the effort to get American citizens and green card holders out of Afghanistan. It's pretty telling, though, that we're still having to undertake this effort through private means, that it's not the United States government who is protecting its citizens wherever they may be in the world, and that our government misled us. In late August, you'll recall that Joe Biden and Tony Blinken and others were saying the number of Americans is down to just a couple hundred, maybe less than 100. Well, we've now seen hundreds of Americans and green card holders evacuated from Afghanistan since the end of August, when the last of our troops left. It's clear that the government was trying to minimize the scale of the fiasco in August, and ever since then, they simply want to turn the page. They don't want to have this in the news. They don't want the American people focused on the historical debacle in Afghanistan. That has a direct contributing factor to Vladimir Putin's decision to potentially invade Ukraine, or to Iran and its proxy attacking our troops and our friends across the Middle East, or China becoming more aggressive as well. When our adversaries saw what happened in Afghanistan, they realized that Joe Biden was not up to the task of meeting their aggression.
Well, and in addition to all that you said, we were also led to believe that the mission was over. And to hear Admiral Kirby admit on this program that, no, Harris, you're right, the mission's not over. Look, just hit him with the facts. It's not an opinion that the mission isn't over. People are still coming home, and as you pointed out, it's hard to get them back. Great for dynamo.
Yeah, and as I said at the time, too, Harris, Joe Biden screwed this up coming and going. We left behind hundreds of citizens, thousands of green card holders and their families, but we also evacuated a lot of Afghans who had no connection to the United States at all, who posed a danger if they were brought to America. And we just saw that recently. One Afghan evacuee was convicted of child sex abuse in a federal court. I fear that we're going to hear more of those stories in the months and the years ahead, because Joe Biden screwed it up coming and going. He left behind many people who deserved to be evacuated. He evacuated many dangerous people who did not deserve it.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you cut and run, which is something our military doesn't do, would never decide to do that. Real quickly, Ukraine and Russia, what has to happen now?
Well, the hour is very late. Vladimir Putin has watched Joe Biden for a year appease and conciliate with them. That's why he thinks he can get away with this invasion of Ukraine. It has nothing to do with short-term considerations like Ukraine joining NATO or NATO exercises in Ukraine. That's simply not happening. Ukraine doesn't have a plan to join NATO. We're not conducting exercises in Ukraine. This is about Vladimir Putin's long-standing desire to reassemble the Russian Empire and to create a buffer of non-democratic states around his autocratic rule. The question is, why does he think he can go for the jugular in Ukraine now? And I think the answer is that he's seen Joe Biden's performance over the last year, and he thinks that he can get away with it.
Senator Cotton, thank you so very much for being in focus today.
Thank you, Harris.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.